Okay, now that we know how to take the derivative of sine and cosine, we can use that to develop the other four trig functions. So I want to find the following derivatives. The first one I want to start with is tangent of x. Well, to do that, I'm going to have to rewrite this. I'm going to write this as d dx of sine of x over cosine of x, and then use the quotient rule. So this will equal the derivative of sine, which is cosine, times cosine of x, minus sine of x times the derivative of cosine, which is a negative sine of x. Clearly this is going to cancel and give me a plus up here, divided by cosine squared of x. Well, this is equal to cosine squared of x plus sine squared of x over cosine squared of x. Well, sine squared plus cosine squared is 1, so this is just 1 over cosine squared of x. That is actually equal to secant squared of x. So the derivative of tangent is secant squared. Now, cotangent, we're going to do the exact same thing with. I need to rewrite this as d dx. Cotangent is 1 over tangent. That gives me cosine x over sine of x. So the derivative of cosine is negative sine. So I have a negative sine x times sine x minus cosine x times the derivative of sine, which is cosine x, divided by sine squared of x. So this is going to be equal to, I'm going to factor out this negative, a negative of sine squared of x plus cosine squared of x over sine squared of x. Well, this is just 1, sine squared plus cosine squared. So this is 1 over sine squared of x. Oops, forgot my negative. So this is going to be equal to a negative cosecant squared of x. So derivative of cotangent is a negative cosecant squared of x. Secant. Secant is equal to 1 over cosine of x, which I'm not going to use a quotient rule. I'm going to write this as, oops, I forgot my d dx. Sorry about that. I should do this properly. We want to follow notation through all the way properly. So this is d dx of 1 over cosine of x, which is d dx of cosine of x, I'm going to write it like this, to the negative 1. See, now I can use a power rule on it. So this is going to be equal to a negative 1 times cosine of x to the negative 2, which is equal to a negative 1 over cosine squared of x. Oops, forgot the chain rule. I need to put in sine of x there. Negative sine of x. Okay, secant of x. I'm going to write this as d dx 1 over cosine of x. So that is going to be equal to, derivative of 1 is 0 times cosine of x, that's just 0, minus 1 times the derivative of cosine, which is a negative sine of x, divided by cosine squared of x. Well, these negatives are going to cancel, so I end up with sine of x over cosine squared of x. Well, that's equal to sine of x over cosine of x times 1 over cosine of x, and that's equal to tangent of x times, oops, times not equals, times secant of x. So the derivative of secant is secant tangent, or tangent secant, however way you want to read it. Now the last one we're going to deal with is cosecant. Cosecant is equal to 1 over sine of x. Oops, that equals doesn't belong there. It's a derivative of 1 over sine of x. Well, that equals, again, derivative of 1 is 0, so 0 times sine of x, minus 1 times, derivative of sine is cosine of x, divided by sine squared of x. That's going to be equal to a negative cosine of x over sine squared of x, which I'm going to break that down to negative cosine of x over sine of x times 1 over sine of x, and that is equal to a negative cotangent of x times cosecant of x. Let me fix that real quickly there. There we go. Cosecant of x. So the derivative of cosecant is a negative cotangent cosecant. So now we have the derivatives for all 6 of the basic trig functions.